Mark your calendars. The Rainbow Push Coalition and Citizenship Education Fund's 41st Annual Conference will be held in Chicago, July 11th through the 14th, 2012. The host hotel this year is the Chicago Hilton and Towers, located at 720 South Michigan Avenue. Please visit our website at www.rainbowpush.org, or you can simply dial 773-FREEDOM for more information. Join the Rainbow Push Coalition for our Push Excel HBCU Tour 2012. The Historically Black Colleges and Universities Tour will commence on March 31st through April 7th, 2012. For more information on our Historically Black Colleges and Universities Tour, please call 773-256-2761, or you can dial 773-256-2762. We hope that you'll join us for this HBCU tour when we stop in your town.
Good morning to you, my brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, we are the Rainbow Push Coalition, people united to serve humanity. And serving you is what we do absolutely best. It is our sincere pleasure this morning to welcome you to our live Saturday morning forum. Of course, we come to you from our national headquarters, located in Chicago, Illinois, at 930 East 50th Street. We would like to thank our audience on the Word Network, WVON, and CAN TV, as well as the millions of household viewers throughout parts of Western Europe, the Caribbean, and 40 million viewers across the continent of Africa who tune in to watch the Rainbow Push Coalition week after week. Thank you so much for your support. We could not do this great work without you. Today, our founder and president is here. Come on, make some noise. The Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. is here. Reverend Jackson has a powerhouse in politics with him today. The leader of the House of Representatives, Ms. Nancy Pelosi, is in the house. Thank you so much. We do appreciate you. I appeal to you, those of you who are watching us on television or listening to us via the radio. Connect with this mass movement that we call the Rainbow Push Coalition. If you would like to get inspired, get informed, and get involved, give us a call at the number on your screen, hit us up on the World Wide Web, or you can always stop by. Again, we're located at 930 East 50th Street in Chicago, Illinois, and we are waiting for you. So my brothers and sisters, stay right where you are. Those of you in TV land, don't touch that dial. Those of you watching us as we stream, continue to watch as we push for change, push for equality, push one for another. Rainbow Push Choir. Of course, that was our choir under the direction of Pastor Bryant Jones, and so we thank you all so much. We want you to listen to Reverend Jackson on our Keep Hope Alive radio show. You can listen on Sunday mornings from 7 a.m. until 9 a.m. You can also log on to keephopealiveradio.com For those of you in the Chicagoland area, you can also visit or listen to us on WVON, which is 1690 AM on your dial. We also want you to follow Reverend Jackson on Twitter, friend him on Facebook, or you can always text him and get immediate responses if you text the word freedom to 95323. Again, text from your mobile phone the word freedom to 95323, and you will get a response and updates from Reverend Jackson. We are inviting all retired educators, displaced teachers, students, and the like to a rally for equal high-quality education. It's going to be right here at our national headquarters, again, 930 East 50th Street, next Saturday, March 10th. So again, if you are a retired teacher, an educator of any kind, or a student, we want you to meet us here next Saturday, March 10th, for a rally for equal high-quality public education. Ladies and gentlemen, come on and stand to your feet. We are about to welcome and receive our president and founder, the Reverend Jesse Louis Jackson Sr. So stand with me as we receive him now.
Say, I am somebody. I am somebody. Red and yellow, brown, black, and white. We're all precious in God's sight. Everybody, stop the violence in Syria now. Stop the killing now. Stop the killing now. Peace, not war, now. If my mind can conceive it and my heart can believe it, I know I can achieve it. I am somebody. Stop the violence. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. Speaker Pelosi, number one, let me hear you scream. We are so delighted today to welcome our family here in Chicago and around the nation. We have a very special guest who honors us with her presence today. She means so much for the causes of inclusion and social justice and care. We are delighted to have her presence. Another big hand for Nancy Pelosi. Stand, Nancy. We're facing some huge challenges of our time, and yet this is a season of great challenge for us. We believe here today we're going to Selma, Alabama. This is the anniversary of Bloody Sundays. We march across the bridge, Sister O'Neill, from Selma, Alabama. But this time we're going to march from Selma back to Montgomery again. We're going to march from Saturday, Sunday, right on through to Friday, to revive or focus on the need to protect the Voting Rights Act, which is in jeopardy again. You hear people saying revive states' rights, the sovereignty of states, undermining intervention. They're saying roll back the clock. Let's not forget the Voting Rights Act was the gateway to the New South and the New America. The Voting Rights Act was for blacks, but not for blacks only. We lied together. Serena Goodman trained the two Jews and the black died. We might have this right to vote. Jimmy Lee Jackson was killed. We might have this right to vote. In this struggle for the right, Reverend James Reed was killed, a white minister from Boston, that we might have this right to vote. Viola Luizzo was called nigger lover and killed at point blank range about this right to vote. And so we shared common blood and graves together, and now it's threatened. Unless we forget, it was not just a vote for blacks. Blacks did come from under the cotton curtain of Southern oppression, but guess what? White women couldn't serve on juries till 1967. Farmers who couldn't pay poll taxes, they could not vote either. 18-year-olds could not vote. You could not vote on college campuses. You could not vote bilingually. We did not have voting proportionality. Selma redefined America in a very fundamental way. So this week we march again. These voter suppression schemes we'll talk about today with Sister Pelosi has a way of undermining our democracy. It claims that we fight wars for democracy abroad and fight a war to stop democracy at home. We must end that contradiction. We're also pained by the fact that even as we fight today for our own freedoms, that we are undermined by the growth of poverty in our country. 53 million Americans are food insecure, 50 million are in poverty or unbankable, cannot get a bank loan, driven into scurrilous lenders. 44 million are on food stamps today, 25 million looking for a job. And yet in some sense, we're turning the corner because 3 years ago we were losing 800,000 jobs a month. The arrow is pointing up now. That's a step in the right direction. Detroit was on the way out then. Detroit's back on the way up again. We're on the way back up again. It was not that long ago that we'd almost given up hope on bankster behavior, but now we have a consumer protection agency. Something is happening in the marketplace today. That's a good thing. So we want to thank our president, frankly, for leading us in a higher and a better direction. Somewhere in the audience, Congressman Danny Davis, please stand. Give it up for Congressman Danny Davis. Appellate Court Justice Jesse Reyes. Cook County Clerk Dorothy Brown. City Treasurer Stephanie Neely. My friend and partner, Brother Craig Glicking, freedom fighter. Rainbow Push, Michigan, Pastor David Bullock. Board of Review, Commissioner Larry Rogers, Jr. Outstanding activist to be elected, Kenny Johnson. Get up, Kenny. Ken Duncan, stand, Representative Ken Duncan. The ISA Corps, won't you stand? Students, please stand. Give them a big hand. Students, stand. Give the students a big hand. Judge Joy Cunningham, won't you stand? Give a big hand. Judge Joy Cunningham, let's hear you scream. And our allies from Syria fighting to stop the killing in Syria. Give it up for our allies from Syria. On your feet. Say, stop the killing. Say, stop the killing. Now. Medical supplies. Now. Stop the killing. Now. Medical supplies. Now. Democracy. Now. Stop the killing. Medical supplies. Democracy. Now. Put your hands together. I want now us to hear a selection as I prepare to bring on Sister Nancy Pelosi for this dialogue we're going to have. Brother English, I want you to do a song for us on that violin. The whole. When you first start coming on, he was a little quiet, and now he's finished college. He went the little hip hat and wearing his shirt out. Violinist Lee England, give it up for violinist Lee England. Put your hands together. Put your hands together to show your love. As I prepare to bring on distinguished Congresswoman, our prayers go out to Johnny Savory this week. Johnny Savory, a member of our staff, was in jail for 27 years, only to be found guilty, to be found innocent of all charges. The madness, and yet he survived it and got out to spend time with his sister who died this week. We keep Johnny Savory in our prayers in a special way. Those victims of the tornadoes throughout the Midwest and the South, keep them in your prayers. The children killed at Chardon High School in Eastlake, Ohio. We must stop the violence. Too many guns, too much madness. We must stop the violence. Last week, they dedicated the street to Bernie Mac. What a brother. I want to thank Alderman Cochran and Alderwoman Thomas for their work in making it happen. Bernie came from Inglewood, just as did Derrick Rose and Jim Rose and Jennifer Hudson. Inglewood has a lot of talent. Put your hands together for Bernie Mac and his family. Now I want you, brothers and sisters, to stand and put your hand together for a woman who has fought for health care, women's rights, workers' rights, social justice, a caring, sensitive soul, Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi. And Nancy, interviewing you makes me nervous. You've been in Congress 25 years.
25 years.
This is your 25th anniversary. What's very different today?
Good morning, everyone. I'm so honored to be here with all of you this morning. I'm absolutely delighted to be here with Reverend Jackson. I congratulate all of you involved in the Rainbow Push Coalition for what you are doing, have been doing, for making that push, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a little minute. 25 years ago, I went to the Congress. The Reverend asked me, what's different? Well, at that time, there was a great deal more civility in the Congress than it is today. There were far fewer women. Now we have many, many more women and minorities, but not enough. So you give me the opportunity, Reverend, to talk about how I think we have to change the environment, because even in 25 years, the incremental change is just, it's not enough. We have to think in a different way to unleash, as you have done in your entire career, the power of many more people. I'm honored to be here with my colleague, Congressman Danny Davis, a great member of Congress. Danny. I honestly believe that one of the reasons that there was an effort on the other side to reduce civility and make it look so awful that people would throw up their arms and say, I can't pay attention to that. It's a tactic for those who do not believe in a government role in clean air, clean water, food safety, public education, public health, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. Let's just make the whole thing look unsavory and turn the public off to it. So we must restore civility, and the president has tried so hard to do that, bless his heart. But they, have said his failure, not his defeat at the polls, that's the democratic process. His failure as a president, they would obstruct what he would do. But if we're going to restore that civility, one thing we have to do is reduce the role of big, unreported, special interest money in the political process.
Super PACs.
I see these combined, because when we do, and we will, all we have to do is win, but not to get into politics. When we do, we will, I promise you, be able to elect many more women, minorities, and young people to public office. And then the Democratic way will take, people will speak, have the debate. It's a marketplace of ideas. People have different ideas. That's okay. That's what a democracy is about. But it's not about suppressing the vote, flooding the airwaves with special interest hidden money, so that the voice, as our founders intended, the votes of the many should determine the outcome, not the bankrolls of a few. So I see from 25 years, we've gone from a path where the role of money has increased, where stridency and vitriolic statements have prevailed, and I contend to you that it is a tactic on the part of the other side to have people be disenchanted with what goes on in government. We have to turn that around.
Give a big hand. Give it up. Nancy, when we go to Selma tomorrow to commemorate the march across the bridge and the beating back and the horses kicking, we're going to march again this week from Selma to Montgomery again. The Voting Rights Act is in jeopardy again. There's no attempt to take it away, but to take away its margins. It seems that we don't appreciate that America is before and after Selma. Not only did blacks have the right to vote, women didn't have the right to serve on juries, and farmers couldn't vote who couldn't pay poll taxes. 18-year-olds couldn't vote. That whole body of entry is now an attempt to undermine the Voting Rights Act again. What can we do about it?
I had the privilege to work on the reauthorization of the Voting Rights Act a number of years ago. Danny was very much a part of that, and you all were from the outside. But here's the thing. The Voting Rights Act is in jeopardy, Section 2, Section 5, Title 2, Title 5. And that's why the election of President Obama, well, that's one of the reasons why the election of President Obama is so important. Because we can mobilize, as you have, to support the Voting Rights Act in a legislative arena, but the court is the place where it is in jeopardy, the Supreme Court of the United States. The majority there, led by, when I say led by, this particular effort, led by Justice Scalia, who's been very outspoken that he does not believe in the Voting Rights Act. It's no secret. So yet again, another reason. You mentioned Selma, Reverend Jackson. I had the privilege of going there a few years ago to march with our colleague John Lewis. And when I was there, we were in Montgomery, we were in Selma, we were in Birmingham, and we saw, and I said, you know, I told my grandchildren were little, now they're getting bigger, and I want to take them there. Every child, a school child in America should visit Alabama and see. This is as important as visiting Boston, Philadelphia, Independence Hall, Washington, D.C. It's as much a part of our history and our freedom. And freedom that sprang from that struggle, and I thank you for your leadership in it. There's nothing that I have done in my 25 years in Congress that had such an emotional, transformational impact as to you read about it, you see it, but to go there and to bear witness to what happened there. But you, of course, witnessed.
I think often what's amiss is its impact beyond just the vote. When the Cotton Curtain came down, industries could come south. You couldn't have had the Carolina Panthers and the Atlanta Falcons behind the Cotton Curtain. You couldn't have had the Olympics behind the Cotton Curtain. You couldn't have had Alabama and LSU play the big game behind the Cotton. So so this whole body of Honda, Toyota, all the international investment, because we pulled the Cotton Curtain, so everybody benefited from the Voting Rights Act.
Everybody did, and our country benefited from it. Yeah, our country benefited. This is about who we are. Young Jesse talks about, the younger Jesse talks about a more perfect union all the time. And this takes us to a more perfect union. So this, yes, of course, you were the point of the spear. You were making the fight. And because the injustice to the African-American community and all minorities and women and the rest, but you made the fight, but it was a fight for America. And we're all in your debt for doing that.
You imply that some of these attacks are kind of diversion. I mean, say the president's not a Christian, he's not one of us. He's not born, he's not American, he's not one of us. To say this certain thing about Michelle Obama, she is not one of us. Put a finger, the governor, in his face and insult, he's not one of us. He's a threat to national security, he's not one of us. And now the idea, as we raise the issue, referring to women as a slut and a prostitute, what's driving this meanness?
Fear. They're afraid. They're afraid of what's coming. They're trying to hold back. They're trying to hold back. Look, I mean, I'll say this boastfully. Forgive me for my modesty here in a place where we're expressing our faith. But here's the thing. When President Obama was elected, it was such an incredible thing for the country. And I thank this neighborhood because this is part of his path to the White House. So what happened? We had been in power, the Democrats, for 2 years, and we had made some progress, and we respectfully worked when we could with President Bush and disagreed respectfully when we couldn't. But we never said we want the President of the United States to fail, and that's what they started out with. Our main goal is to make sure he fails. The most important thing we can do, they said, is to make sure he fails. But since we were in the majority then and the President was newly in power, think of this. The very first bill he signed was Lilly Ledbetter to end discrimination in the workplace for women. And one of the last bills he signed in our term was the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell to end discrimination in the military. And in between, he had all of these other measures that empowered people, that expanded freedom in our country. Whether it was the health care bill, well, I'll get to that in a moment, whether it was the Wall Street reform you talk about. Never before in our history had we had consumer protections passed and established in our country. And what do they want to do?
What does that mean, the Consumer Protection Bill? What does it enable us to do?
Well, it enables us to hold people accountable so that we don't have another episode where some, I don't paint everyone with the same brush, but some on Wall Street, their recklessness caused joblessness on Main Street. And that can't happen again. So the bill that the president signed, that we passed, the president signed, had regulatory reform that was historic and hadn't been done in decades. But the consumer protections that are in that bill, establishing an agency that says we are the cop on the beat for the consumer in America. So afraid are they of that they would not want the president to appoint a person to head it. He had to make a recess appointment, that they don't want it to be funded. They don't want consumers' rights to be protected. But we now have a voice because of President Obama. So they want to overturn that. They want to overturn the pieces of that Wall Street reform bill that said, if you're manipulating and speculating in oil so that the price of the pump goes up, we're going to make sure you stop that because that hurts the consumer in our country. And that price at the pump is affected by that speculation and manipulation, and the bill takes measures to stop that. But they're taking the bill to court so that you can't protect consumers. This is the special interest versus the people's interest. Make no mistake. So they're afraid because this is empowering people. This is protecting people's opportunity and financial security. And it's about our children. It all comes back to our children. So that's why when you ask me what is their motivation, special interest, it's an economic thing for them. They spend all this money pouring unidentified special interest money into campaigns. It's the price of doing business for them. They're not doing it because they want a better America. They're doing it because they want to make more profits.
How do you make...
A, and B, they want the voice of the many to be blunted.
It seems that they're using, again, affirmative action as a bait issue. The affirmative action I've heard you say is a majority, not a minority issue. It's women and people of color, which makes it majority. If they're able to remove race as a factor out in the Supreme Court decision, it unravels a century of progress in the sense that it's not just race, it's race that matter, grades matter, gender matters, athletics matter. There's a whole range of considerations. To remove racial justice out of the equation is a radical step backwards.
Well, it certainly is. But let's go from there to why it's important for us to make this fight. It's important to individual young people so they have their opportunity. But I firmly believe that the future growth now and into the future growth of America cannot really happen unless we involve everybody in how we go forward. They like the way it is. They control the whole thing. So we're saying the America that we dream of, the America that's always expanding opportunity, is an America that involves and educates everyone along the way. And that really will unleash something so different for the future. But they're afraid of that because they like the status quo, protecting the assets that they have, protecting the value of their money. They don't like the fact that if unemployment goes down, they're afraid that inflation will go up. Well, we all are. But not to the point of saying, well, we can't have unemployment go down because we have to protect the assets of the wealthy. You know what? A lot of it is about money. And a lot of it is about
Why is there a resistance to deal with Dr. King's last act was the Poor People's Campaign? You came to Resurrection City. Your father been mayor for 16 years?
My father for mayor, my brother for 4. 12 and 4, 16 together.
It's called the Pelosi machine.
D'Alessandro in Baltimore, Maryland.
We 53 million Americans in food insecure, and 50 million in poverty who cannot get a bank loan. They're driven to the back door of the bank, and 44 million on food stamps. There seems to be a kind of disregard and or contempt for the growing poor people.
Well, let me say, since you referenced the Poor People's March, and we talked about Resurrection City earlier, I did visit Resurrection City, but I was also there in 1963. Now, feel sorry for me in this respect. I went there, I saw the people marching in and this or that, but then I had to leave before all the speeches began because I was getting married. And my husband's family was coming from California to Baltimore, where I grew up. And so I bore witness. It was an incredibly emotional thing. It was fabulous. But I had to miss the speech because I went together. So I always remember exactly how long ago the march was because I've been married 48 years, and it was 48 and a half years ago. But doesn't it seem strange if we look at that time and we then fast forward to where we are, that we're still having some of the same fights? People say to me, why do you 25 years in Congress, why do you keep doing this and working so hard and traveling? I said, the one in 5 kids in America lives in poverty. It's just intolerable. It drives me crazy. There's such an urgency to it, and that's why I'm so grateful to Reverend Jackson and all of you for what you do. How can we, as a great country, the United States of America, have 1 in 5 children, many of them going to sleep hungry at night? Something is very wrong with this picture. And we're concerned about poverty all over the world. We have to make that commitment to the alleviation of poverty. But why, after all that Reverend King did, with all that you did, why now, 48 years later, from that original march on Washington, is there still, we have to change the environment once again. You all took giant steps for America at that time. Now we have to kick open the door further. Kick open the door further. Make our own environment. What do we want to see happen now? Because we got people in place. What do we want to see happen? Let's get on with that.
But that's what strikes me as strange about this, is the kind of commercialized political Christians who speak disparagingly of religion, and yet they are Christians, which is a contradiction. Jesus was born under Roman occupation, in colonialism, a poor Jew in the stable, in the manger, on the death warrant, had to go to Egypt as a refugee, an immigrant, among the poorest, who says, my mission is to defend the poor and set the captive free. Why is there such a kind of contempt for poor people?
If the Bible is so important to all of these people of faith, and I trust that it is, and don't question their motivation or their religious fervor, but there is an inconsistency to pray in church and leave and then fight any efforts and say, imagine that they would say the president is the food stamp president.
That's an honor. That's an honor, right?
I must say it's a badge of honor as far as we're concerned, right? But they don't say it that way, and they know that certain people don't hear it that way. Look, the Gospel of Matthew. When I was hungry, when I needed shelter, when I needed clothing, when I was in prison, you visited me. Elevating those in need and those in prison. That's why when you were talking about Johnny earlier, I was thinking of the Bible saying, the gospel saying, when I was in prison, redemption, important part of America.
In order to preach the gospel, good news to the poor. It seems the idea of good news to the poor is foreign to the present set of projected values. But is it not, to use these terms of attack, a diversion from addressing the issue of bank foreclosure, home foreclosure, and lack of access to public transportation? Is not these so-called private values issues a diversion from public policy?
Well, here's the thing. I think you have to take a few steps back from the whole thing. There are two things that work, in my view. One is that there isn't an immediate connection between religious values and acting upon them in the public arena. If you believe this, then you would not tolerate 1 in 5 children living in poverty in America. And we talk about our children. When people ask me what are the 5 most important issues facing the Congress, I always say the same thing. Our children, our children, our children, our children, our children. Their health, their education, the economic security of their families, the pension security of their seniors, and the safety of the neighborhoods in which they live. So it affects everything. It affects everything. But then you have this other side of the coin where there is an ideological disagreement about the role of government in our country. And so when people say, well, why is everybody fighting in Washington? Why can't you find your common ground? It's because we're two different paths. It used to be we could find common ground because we were on a spectrum from right to left. Okay, let's find a common ground. But now it's a path of saying we don't want government. They don't want a government role in clean air and all that means for environmental justice, clean air, clean water, food safety, public education, public health, we've said this before, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. They don't believe in a public role in that. Now, they want to breathe clean air and they want to drink clean water and they want to have food safety for their families, but they think that that can happen without a referee on the field. And they think that Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security just happens. But no, it's a government role. Now, you have to give some of the Republicans credit for this. They don't believe in any of that, and they act upon their beliefs. They have a bill to privatize Social Security. They have a budget to break the Medicare guarantee. They come to the floor almost every day with some kind of resolution that says we're not going to implement rules governing clean air, clean water, food safety, etc. So they act upon those beliefs in their anti-ideological, anti-government beliefs. But they don't seem to act upon all of the religious beliefs that would follow the gospel of Matthew. So it is ideological in terms of the role of government, and it is also it's dominated by all of this money coming in to mischaracterize, to misrepresent what actually is effective. So they'll say, "Wow, this money's wasted here. This money's wasted." No, what are our priorities as a nation? Educate our children, create jobs for our workers, keep our seniors secure, protect our people, do so in a fiscally sound way. Don't we all agree on that? Is there anything partisan about that?
It seems to me that, except for those who think pursuing college education is snobbish,
Yeah,
except for those who think it's snobbish.
Yeah.
What about this issue of student loan debt now greater than credit card debt and the high rising cost of tuition?
Well, it absolutely, but putting aside, I don't even characterize it, a statement like that, which doesn't even deserve attention except that it's a little bit scary. But the president is committed. When we did the health care bill, it was a dual track. We did health care and education. And in that education piece of it, we reduced the cost of interest payments for kids on student loans. We increased the Pell Grant. That was really important for us. We also put over $2 billion for minority-serving institutions, historical black colleges, Hispanic-serving institutions, institutions that serve the needs of Native Americans. That was big, over $2 billion. In the past, we were fighting for $10, $12, $22 million, and now we had over $2 billion. So it was a big, strong education piece. But some of that is expiring in July. And when we met with the president the other day, I usually don't talk about what goes on in the meetings, but he made that a priority in the leadership meeting, that we reduce that. And while I'm on the subject of the health care, because the health care thing is a liberating thing. Our founders talked about life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. We could have a healthier life, pursue your happiness, the liberty to pursue your happiness without being job locked, without, like Lee England Jr., if you want to play the violin, if you want to be a photographer, a writer, if you want to be self-employed, if you want to start a business, if you want to change jobs, you're no longer confined, job locked, because of a concern that you might jeopardize the health of yourself or your children or your family in another way. So when we were having this fight, this dual track, the education and health, which we thought both enhanced opportunity for people, that health care was a right for everyone, not just for the privileged few. When we were having that fight, and I come here to thank you for your role in this, you especially, Reverend Jackson, because you were there and you saw first up close and personal what was going on there. It was really a tough fight. Because the special interest money, it comes back to the special interest money, the health insurance industry, and others who are anti-government teamed together to fight this, because it was going to be about giving people more opportunity, but it was going to be at a cost to the health insurance industry. It had it their own way forever. So anyway, when we were in the fight, people came to me, the press came to me, and they said, how do you think you're going to pass this? You know, they were lost in Massachusetts. Remember, we lost that senator? And they said, no, this must be over. I said, no, we're going to pass it because it's urgent, because we have our opportunity. They had the opportunity for Social Security in the 30s, for Medicare and Medicaid in the 60s. This is our historic generational opportunity to do something for all of the American people. Well, where are you going to get the votes? How are you going to get this done? So I said, well, we're going to do it, and here's how we're going to do it. We're going to get together, and we're going to go up to the gate that is blocking this. I'm going to use a word familiar to all of you. And we're going to push it open. And if that doesn't work, we're going to climb the fence. And if that's too high, we're going to pole vault in. And if that doesn't work, we're going to parachute in. But we're not going to let anything stand in the way for health care for all Americans.
Nancy.
So, when we passed the bill, the press came back and they said, which one did you do? And I said, you know what? We just pushed open the gate. We had our 220 strong Democrats committed to the principle, and we were not alone. All of you were there with us. You had been there with your ideas on how to do it right to end disparities in health care in our country. Our CBC, our Congressional Black Caucus, Reverend Jackson and others, taking the lead and saying we've got to end the disparities in access to health care in our country. All of you were there. The nuns were there with us. Everybody was there with us to push that gate open.
Nancy, let me ask you this question. In terms of some concretes, you guys came in 3 years ago. We were losing 800,000 jobs a month. Now the arrow is pointing up. Detroit was sinking. The arrow is pointing up. We had 100,000 troops in Iraq. They are now home. Bin Laden is no more. The arrow is pointing up. Now we're looking daily at this crisis in Syria, but we're looking at killing in real time every day. What must we do?
Well, let me just go back to your first points about the change that has happened in 3 years and some of those improvements, which really are attributed to President Barack Obama and his policies. I wanted, and then come back to your final question. President Obama, well, just in terms of the health care thing that I'll segue into, after we passed the health care bill, the next day the president called, he said, last night when you passed the health care bill, I was happier than I was the night I was elected president of the United States for what it means to the American people. I said, well, I was pretty happy last night too, Mr. President, but I wasn't happier than I was the night you were elected president, because if you weren't elected president, we wouldn't have been able to pass the bill. We absolutely, we could not have done it without him, but we couldn't have done it without you either. So I hope you take great satisfaction in the role you play. So people said, oh, why you pass the health care bill? Why didn't you pass jobs bill? No, the very first bill the president, after, I mentioned Lilly Ledbetter, and we've done S-CHIP for ensuring 11 million children in our country leading up to the health care bill. But 1 week and 1 day, this relates to your first part of your question. Remember the inauguration? Remember that, okay. There he was saying, I'm calling for swift, bold action now to create jobs, to educate our children, the list goes on, protect our seniors. 1 week and 1 day after the president's inaugural address, the House of Representatives passed his recovery stimulus package. And that, not by us, don't take it by me, by the economists who study this, 3.5 million jobs saved or created. And that was the beginning of taking down this 800,000 jobs being lost on a regular basis. He had inherited a terrible thing. Professional and statesman that he is, he was about getting the job done rather than pointing fingers. But I'll do it for him. Yeah. So in any event, so you see the changes that the Reverend mentioned, the turnaround in the job situation, and bringing our troops home from Iraq and now soon from Afghanistan and other things. And and the president will, today's Saturday, right? Tomorrow he'll be making a speech about some foreign policy issues, including Iran. Iran is very closely linked to what's happening in Syria. They are they're their only friend really in the world, Syria to Iran.
Wouldn't you say Russia as well?
Well, the Russians and the Chinese, who have resisted sanctions, serious sanctions that we should have on Iran and on Syria, or actions taken on Syria. Here's my view of that. The Russians sell a lot of arms to Syria. It's economic. Keeps coming back to money. But they also have another political agenda. Iran was the biggest exporter of militants in the world before. It was the Sudan and it was Iran. So Iran has all this oil, as does the Sudan. But let's just talk about Iran for a moment. The Chinese did not want the Iranians transporting any militants into, the Chinese didn't want them into the Uyghur areas of the western part of China. So they made a deal. We'll stick with you politically at the UN and all the rest. You don't have any of Muslim activists coming into China, theirs in China. Same thing with the Russians. They didn't want any support coming from those areas to go into Chechnya and places like that. So that's what their link is. That's a political link. We're with you. You wonder why in the UN with China and you and Russia always have a break with us on issues that relate to the human dignity of people, of stopping the violence, of bringing medical supplies, of encouraging democracy.
We just want to do, if we can just do two things. One, stop the killing and get medical supplies through right now.
If not to allow that to happen on top of the violence that the Syrian government is perpetrating is clearly outside the behavior of civilized human beings. This is uncivilized, what they're doing. But understand what motivates some of their friends. Iran, because that's their only real pal, and they are supporting the violence there.
There's a rumor going around since you've been in town that when the meeting is over, you're going to support Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr. Explain that.
One of the reasons I am here, and I will do this following this wonderful meeting, is to publicly state my endorsement of Jesse Jackson Jr. for re-election. I do so with great pride. I remember when he came to the Congress with a great name and a great tradition of his parents. But he came and he made his own mark in the Congress from his own generation. I mentioned earlier, and I don't know if Jesse was here, that he has acted upon his beliefs for a more perfect union for America, and always encourages us and challenges us to measure what the actions we are taking as to whether they do just that, form a more perfect union, and all that implies. He has taught us well about the Constitution. He's written a book on it, about what's happening in the Capitol. And Jesse, listen, it's just some discrete thing. There's so many things I could talk about his role on the Appropriations Committee, and I will in the press conference. But just think of this. Jesse was very much a part of, he was the author of the resolution that said when Congress, the Capitol was expanded to include this visitor center with this massive hall where people would gather and hear about our country, that it would be called Emancipation Hall. And it is indeed. He helped us when we were trying, and with Danny, I named these things. There's so many things about education and healthcare and building the infrastructure of this region and of our country and creating jobs and the rest. But just some things that are so, when Rosa Parks died, he was very much a part of our persuading the then Speaker Hastert to have her lie in state in the Capitol of the United States. This was a remarkable, remarkable thing. And when we said we're going to have this new area, this Emancipation Hall, it was part of our having our first dedication of a new statue there, be Sojourner Truth. Sojourner Truth. So it's about saying, we are not excluding anybody from this when we tell the story of America. And Jesse's been so much a part of that. If I just can tell you this one story, because when we dedicated dedicated Sojourner Truth, the First Lady was there. She was the new First Lady. It was 2009, the new First Lady. She turned to me as Speaker. She said, I know Rosa Parks would like to I know that Sojourner Truth would really be pleased to see that the United States has a woman Speaker of the House. But just think of what she would be thinking of me, Michelle Obama, as the First Lady of the United States of America.
Nancy, this has been so great. Give us, in terms of where we are going, what you expect between now and, I guess, September 3rd in Charlotte, November 6th. What do you expect of us between now and November 6th election day, given what we're facing?
Well, I say to people all the time, know your power. Because the only way we can contend with the big money is with people. And that's why, as the Reverend mentioned in his remarks earlier, we have this effort under the leadership of Jim Clyburn, our distinguished assistant leader, and part of the civil rights movement himself, to fight. He doesn't like me to say voter suppression, but you know what that is. He wants to speak more positively as voter protection. Now, we know what they're trying to do. We know what they're trying to do. But we don't agonize, we organize. We go out there and organize. And so we want to shine the bright light and tell the American people what they're doing. But this isn't just a conversation. At the same time, working with all of you, we're going to make sure people have those ID cards, that they're going to be registered, that they're going to vote, and that their vote will be counted. And so that is, I come back to where we are with Reverend Jackson here, thinking of all the things that were done and when he was in the lead and has been for decades, but as a young person in the movement, and you talked about my family in Baltimore. My brother was the mayor who worked with Reverend King on equal housing accommodations and restaurant all of those things then. And he spoke about, poverty existing in the shadow of banners of prosperity and high-rises, and some of that still exists. But we have it in our DNA that we're going to continue to make this fight. But you know what we have to do? We have to just win, baby, so that we can...
Put your hand together for Nancy Pelosi. Put your hand together. We want to dedicate a song to the speaker. Say, stand. Say, when it's all said and done, stand. When you face challenges, stand. When it's tough, don't give up. Fight back. Vote. Stand. Believe in yourself. Put your hand together for Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Dedicate this song to her. Stand.
Tell me, what do you do when you've done all you can, and it seems like it's never enough? Tell me, what do you say when your friends turn away and you're alone? Tell me, what do you give when you're giving your all and it seems like you can't make it through? I tell you, well, you just stand when there's nothing left to do. You just stand and watch the Lord see you through. And after you've done all you can, tell somebody, you just stand. Tell me, how do you handle the guilt of your past? Tell me, how do you deal with the shame? Tell me, how do you smile when your heart has been broken and filled with shame? Tell me, what do you do when you've done all you can and it seems like you can't make it through? Come on, tell somebody. Well, you just stand, stand, stand. Don't you dare give up.
Oh, wave your hand if you're gonna stand. Somebody put those hands together if you stand. Through the storm, through the rain, through the sickness, you gotta stand. You gotta stand when it's hard. You gotta stand when you're down. You gotta go through the good, go through the bad. You gotta go through the happy that you can. Yeah, after you've done everything that you can. You know you haven't done everything yet. You gotta keep on pushing. You gotta keep on parachuting. You gotta keep on running. You gotta keep on walking. You gotta keep on going. Listen, and after you've done all you can, you just stand. But while you're standing, watch the Lord see you through. Yeah. Oh, you just stand. Yes. Yeah.
I want us to take our seats now before the congressman escorts the speaker out. Let us have our seats. There are a couple of things we must be mindful of. Yesterday morning, people woke up in Harrisburg, Illinois, and watched their houses go down the street, and loved ones lost and hurt. In Kansas and Tennessee and Indiana, we must not take for granted the fact that God spared us and it didn't happen to us. So we pause for a moment to express our sincere prayers for those families. We express our thanks to God for the football coach in Ohio who saved some lives, though he could not save all of them. I want to express thanks in a special way to our brothers and sisters in today here who are Syrian Americans and Syrians who are in such great pain. We are organizing a delegation of religious leaders. We may very well go to Moscow and to Damascus to make our moral appeal to stop the killing and let the medicine through. Say, stop the killing. Let the medicine flow. Stop the killing. Let the medicine flow. We're all inextricably bound to the other in very special ways. As we fight for a sane immigration policy, as we fight the issues of poverty, illiteracy, disease, and war, it's our time and our challenge. Let's be prayerful about that. And what affects one of us directly affects the rest of us indirectly. So some will leave here today going to Selma, Alabama to make that march again this week from Selma to Montgomery because the Voting Rights Act is in jeopardy again. On this issue of remove race from a factor. Race is not the only factor in getting in school. Gender is a factor, poverty a factor, grades a factor, the ability to pay a factor, being an athlete a factor, being a foreign student a factor, but they want to remove race as a factor. If race is no longer a factor, that becomes indifference to race. Indifference is racism. That's what Jesus meant when he said that the man was beaten on the side of the road and left to die. And it was not that the priest who walked to the other side of the street hated him. He was indifferent to him. Indifference itself is a form. Indifference is a word. At least in hatred, I take you into account. When I'm indifferent, you don't even matter. And so everybody matters. Everybody matters. If there's bloodshed in Yemen, bloodshed in Syria, bloodshed in Africa or Inglewood, everybody matters. All of us must embrace each other. We're neighbors. If my neighbor's house is on fire, if I'm totally innocent, but the wind blows, I'll be consumed by the same fire. I'm not safe until my neighbor is safe. Bow our heads in prayer silently and quietly. For those who are in distress and who are hurting today. Don't just pray, but prepare to act. We need you here to volunteer on Monday night as we fight to stop home foreclosures. as we rally to stop the killing in Syria, as we rally to connect our youth to get them to go to college with the scholarship program here at Rainbow Push, meet us there. For those in Harrisburg today, downstate Illinois, pray for them in some special way. For Johnny Saver, who's lost his sister, pray for Johnny today. Give him strength. Amen. I want to do two things, if it's yours, and I think it. Give Nancy Pelosi another big hand. Then doing she good today? I want Joy Cunningham stand one more time. She's Judge Joy Cunningham. You do know if we vote our numbers. See, if we vote our numbers and our need, Joy Cunningham will be on the Supreme Court. Put your hand together again. Joy, what's your number? Number 103. Number 103 for the Supreme Court. Early voting began last Monday. Early voting has begun. Don't wait till the last day. Vote this week. We have the power. Beside all the money and all the trickery involved, we, in fact, can put Joy Cunningham on the Supreme Court, and we ought to. I need this support from you because there are a number of you who are going to see the speaker in just for a moment before she does her press conference with the congressman. Daniel, you and Ms. O'Neill to be a part of that, Ms. Brown and so forth. Rainbow Push needs your support. We were here the Saturday that you were not here. We'll be here hopefully the next one. We need your help. We don't have a government grant. The reason we can speak truth to power because we're not linked, we're not locked up. We can speak. We're going to fight for the elected school board and empower the people. Matter of fact, next Saturday, the big focus will be on this issue of preparing for an elected school board. We have a $7 billion school budget, bigger than most states, Danny. Our school board is bigger than many state budgets, and yet it is totally disconnected from the people or their parents. We must enfranchise, and we will do that. Now, on the collection. If you are not a member of Rainbow Push, by the way, you can get us rainbowpush.org, follow us on Facebook and Twitter icon. If you will sacrifice and give $100 or more, please stand. You will sacrifice and give $100 or more, please stand. You will sacrifice. We need your support. If what we're doing Pastor Long, I'm so glad to see you. Sister Dr. Bishop Joanne Long, you'll give $100.